Why are you looking at me like that?
That armor you wear is standard issue for the Menancian Guard, right?
Originally, I've added some flair to it in a lot of places.
I noticed, especially with that open back.
We guardsmen pride ourselves on never showing our back to our enemies. It's my way of making myself live up to that. Plus, it makes it that much lighter and easier to maintain.
Dohalim, do you have anything to say about this?
Every guardsman is allowed to wear their armor as they see fit.
And you, La?
Huh? Why are you asking me? This is perfect! I'll have everybody's mouths watering when they see this!
Kisara, let's talk for a bit. Maintaining your shield? It's becoming a familiar sight.
Miguel was the one who taught me how to maintain my equipment after I first joined the Guard. Now, it's just a part of my routine.
Your brother always seems to come up whenever I talk to you.
That's because we had no other relatives, so it was just the two of us growing up. He was my idol, the one I looked up to and wanted to be like. When I became a guardsman, Lagiel wasn't too pleased to see me at first. It was Miguel who really welcomed me aboard.
Lagiel? Oh, right. She was Miguel's second in the Gold Dust Cats, wasn't she?
That's right. She's always been a very critical and down-to-earth person. In other words, the complete opposite of a dreamer like me.
You're more an idealist than some pie-in-the-sky dreamer.
Even so, that's my brother's doing. He'd never let me stop seeing a brighter world. He always did what he could to keep me smiling and happy.
You must have meant a lot to him.
He wasn't just kind either. He always worked so hard to set an example for me and everyone else around him. He was a true big brother. So much so that when he thought I was asleep, he'd slip out of the house to go training on the outskirts of town.
You seem to know a lot about it.
That's because I only pretended to be asleep and would follow after him. You know what? I'm at a good stopping point with my shield. If you've got time, how about I tell you a couple more Miguel stories?
I guess I'd better get comfortable.
I'll take watch tonight. It's okay. Before we go, do you guys have everything?
Something feels odd here. Be on your guard.
I just noticed none of you other Danans have spirit cores. Why is that?
Both of my parents were part of the Resistance in Calaglia. In fact, my birth was kept a secret from the Renans.
Mine too. We always lived in hiding, so I never had a spirit core embedded in me like I was supposed to.
What about you, Alphen? You were a slave in Calaglia before all this, weren't you?
To be completely honest, I'm not sure why I don't have one. All the other Danan slaves around me did. I was the only exception. They tended to keep their distance from me to avoid attracting any attention from the soldiers, because of my mask and all. What about you, Kisara? Do you still have your spirit core?
No. I was able to find a good Renan doctor who's sympathetic to our kind, and had them remove it before I left. They did such a great job, the procedure didn't even leave a scar.
One of the benefits of coexistence, huh?
I know that once the spirit vessel was shut down, there wasn't much need for me to hurry. But still, I didn't like having that mark of servitude lingering on me any longer than I had to. It may sound a little strange to hear me say this, but I'm just me now. Not a guardsman or a slave. I'm my own woman. And this is my chance to have a new beginning.
This sure is one rugged road. You'd think they'd keep this at least a little better maintained, right?
Why spend energy fixing that which is rarely used? Repairs require time and effort, which in our world means slaves, often in great numbers. For you, it may be a simple request, but that can quickly become another's difficult burden. Nobody gains anything without someone expending effort.
And you know, somehow that someone always ends up being a Danon, while the Renans are the ones who gain.
True enough. Ideally, in a perfect world, I think it's only fair that the ones who need it should be the ones to perform the work.
However, when doing so could be dangerous like it is here, there are many who would prefer that it be others who risk their lives in their stead.
So, what you're saying is that people will just put up with the inconvenience until someone else comes along to fix it for them?
Indeed. And it is those who can no longer bear that feeling that inevitably take action. Much like the Danons in our group do so now. As strange as it may be to hear such a thing from the likes of myself.
It's true that most of the Danons in Calaglia have been resigned to just accepting things as they are. Still, we can't just blame them for...
What are you making that face for? You're not worn out already, are you?
Nah, just regretting I ever said anything in the first place. Oh man, I hope I live long enough to regret this. It's over! Swallow Dance!
Glacial Spear! Pierce the evil!
Swallow Blade!
Airborne Beast! My spec! This one's mine!
Got fired!
I've got it! Let a marksman handle it!
All yours!
Now!
Here I come! Rising Wyvern! Rising Falcon! Swallow Blade! You're mine! Swallow Blade! Bullseye, Sion! Nice!
Get out of my sight line or you'll get hit!
Oops, right, sorry, thanks! Take this! Rising Wyvern! Swallow Dance! Rising Falcon! Swallow Blade! I'm not done! Swallow Blade!
Now!
We can really make weapons with this? All right.
There's nowhere to run from my heart.
When he slows down, that's our chance!
In a bind,
It's like trying to keep up with a wall!
it's time.
Dragon Form! Roll now! Swallow Blade! Rising Wyvern! You're mine! Try harder! My turn! Strike! Dragon Swarm! Slash! Dragon Swarm!
I'm Now!
Still!
This ends now!
Consider yourself finished!
See you continue on in that vein.
Tear you apart!
My lady?
Something you wanted to say?
Go for it!
Prepare to crumble.
Got some interesting moves there, Dohalim. I'm glad you're on our side.
I'm simply glad to hear that I can make myself useful to you all. Huh?
What's wrong?
We seem to have come across some rather unusual objects.
What, you mean that pile of garbage?
No mere garbage, I assure you. Still, I've never seen anything shaped like it before. I'm intrigued.
Are you curious about this stuff, Rinwell?
Yeah. I think he might have found some old Danon relics. They look like the remains of a bunch of objects that disappeared after the Renans first invaded.
And yet here I am, holding them without so much as a second thought. I imagine the sight must be unsettling to you.
Not really, just that it must be nice to be a Renan who has time to indulge in stuff like that, unlike the rest of us.
Are you interested in this stuff too, Dohalim?
Charmed may be a better turn of phrase. I simply love objects that can give me a sense of what their maker was thinking, the history that went into their creation. You see, we Renans have hardly any such objects that trace back to our distant past.
I still don't understand what you two find so intriguing about it, though.
Why not? We're talking about our own culture here.
I get that, but it's not like this stuff is any use now, does it? It's just old. Real old.
Oh, but it does. Holding it in your hands like this, one can feel and engage with the distant past in a way no history book can ever accomplish.
I'll take your word for it. Well, seeing as it's Danon history, just make sure you're careful with it. All right, Dohalim?
But of course.
I sense a strange power from this.
We can really make weapons with this?
Visibility along this path will remain limited for some time. Take care not to get ambushed.
I'm surprised you know the terrain here so well. Lords don't strike me as having much time for wandering in the woods.
Sometimes I would take strolls along here when I wished to be alone.
You always did have a bad habit of disappearing without telling any of us guardsmen.
Something feels odd here. Be on your guard.
Brace yourself! This one's tough! Dragon
I'm also good with airborne targets.
You're mine! You're finished! Got fire!
I've got this. Let a marksman handle it.
All yours!
Here's Evo.
Eternal devastation! Rising Wyvern! Rising Falcon! Be still! Take it!
Freeze Lancer.
Any injuries?
Oh man, I hope I live long enough to regret this.
Death Blossom! This one's all mine!
I'll finish you here and now!
Dragon Swarm!
Pesky airborne scoundrels!
Sounds like a job for yours truly. Astral energy.
Say no more!
You sure showed them.
All in a day's work.
Finally, some open space again.
I'm impressed how well balanced this thing is.
Oh man, I hope I live long enough to regret this.
Rip and tear! Eagle Assault!
I'm just getting started.
I never miss.
You're finished!
Flying freeze!
Look
If they just sit still!
Sion, can you take care of them?
No sooner said than done.
Go away! It's over!
Lightning condemned. Freeze Lancer.
You're mine!
Healer.
Rising Wyvern! Rising Falcon!
Rip and tear!
Eternal devastation! Coming through! Ha! Now! Scarlet Inferno!
Domaline!
Light burst forth!
Radiant Genesis!
I need to be stronger.
Let's dispose of the trash.
Rising Falcon! Eternal Devastation!
Eagle Assault!
What's
this?
Swallow Blade! Take this!
Now!
You're finished!
I'll stop your movement!
And I'll stop your life! Did you see?
Sure did. The part where you swung and missed, right?
Not that part!
Brace yourselves! This one's tough! Rising Falcon!
Where are you going?
Swallow Blade! Eternal Devastation! We got flyers!
I've got
Rising
I'll crush you! Lightning reflexes! Tenebrous claw! Swallow dance!
Swallow Blade!
Take arrow!
Do it!
What?
Neon! Astral energy! Full throttle!
I can feel my power growing!
Hey, what do you say?
I've got a really bad feeling about this.
Rising Falcon!
Annihilation! Annihilate the wind! Where are you going? It's a duel of the arts!
I'm not done! Eat dirt!
Like astral energy!
Here I come!
ST Airborne scoundrel!
Sounds like a job for yours truly.
Go get it!
Rising
Do it! Law!
Demons descend! Flashing bang! Easy!
Way to go!
Do it!
Look sharp!
Lightning Tiger Blade!
Not a chance!
Leave the ensnaring to me. Yeah! And totally to me!
Supernova! Raging Cascade! It's over!
These little ones are hardly worth our time.
Astral energy!
Say no more! This should make for some good weapon crafting material.
It's so hilly around here. I can feel my feet getting blisters.
That's mountain hiking for you. It can be pretty tough if you're not used to these sorts of trails.
I take it you're comfortable with them then? Hi, Hoodle!
Rising Falcon! Swallow Blade!
I'm like bait to them!
Dragon Swarm! You picked the wrong fight! Here I come! You're finished!
Leave the enemy's arc to me!
Demons descend! Flashing bang! Easy!
Way to go!
You're mine!
There you go!
Soaring Light Spear!
What's this?
Take this!
Eagle Dive!
I never miss!
Swallow Blade!
Fantastic! Great! Amazing!
Shut up, Law! I'm trying to focus!
I was only trying to be nice.
Your power is expected to behold.
I'm not trying to be dramatic with it.
Still, it's a part of you. Embrace it. Looks like it could be worth something.
Little help!
Luna Rondo! Soda! I'm on it!
Break it!
Not on my watch!
First strike! got fire!
I'm like bait.
Look sharp!
Lightning Tiger Blade! See that?
That training's paying off!
Where are you going?
Now I'm in the groove.
You're
Do it!
Demon's Descent! Flashing Fang!
Dance in the wind, I call!
Stardust!
In here!
Should have messed with me.
Over the stop time!
Onward and upward. No choice. Strike!
Hear me! Flame of fury!
I'll tear you apart!
Swallow blade! Dragon Ball!
Now
It's
I'm
like
real
trying to
mad.
keep up with a wolf! Raging storm!
Blind freeze!
I'll take you all on! Sion, can you take care of them?
No sooner said than done!
Rising Falcon!
Hard steel!
Why'd you heal me?
To stop you dying?
You picked them up!
Here goes! Lunar blast!
No escape! Dragon Form!
I can carve through armor!
It's over!
My astral raging flame!
The enemy wields art.
This ends now!
Consider yourself finished!
See you continue on in that vein.
Yes, my lady?
Something you wanted to say?
Raging cascade!
Stardust!
Swallow dance! Lunar blast!
Rain Blast!
By the
I'll tear you apart! Rising Lion! Rising Falcon! Swallow blade!
Eagle Assault!
Take it!
Wind
Do it!
astral
You're
energy!
finished!
I'll stop your movement!
And I'll stop your life!
I think I'm getting stronger.
I found some equipment.
Let me take a look at it.
More Danon runes here too, I see.
What were people even thinking back then? Trying to build anything around here.
No choice! It's on! I'm not done!
Right here!
Dragon Swarm!
Let's get you off
Rising Wyvern!
Hear my call! Like astral
Hurrah!
energy! Bananas! Let's go! Dance in the wind!
Pesky airborne scoundrels.
Sounds like a job for yours truly.
Take this!
Chinese supernova!
Burn in hell!
Hear me! Flame of fury!
Goodbye!
It's showtime!
Dragon Swarm!
You're most comfortable at a range, aren't you?
I'm not really built for close quarters combat.
Nor am I. Don't worry, I'll help you keep away first.
Dragon Swarm!
Freeze Lancer! Air thrust!
I've still got a ways to go!
What's this thing? What's this thing?
It's on!
I'll heal you all! Lightning condemned! I never miss!
Take this! Dragon Swarm!
I'll finish you here and now!
I'm not so good with airborne targets.
Where are you going? Shining supernova! Astral energy!
Say no more! Got it!
Well done!
I'm not done! Dragon Swarm! Thanks! It's over! Rising Lion!
Now I'm in the
It's
groove!
on!
Tempest Whirl!
Lady Fortune must truly be watching over me.
Sure, I've built up a sweat with this hike.
Rest assured, we have reached the top. It's all downhill from here, quite literally.
So Mahag Sar's just up ahead then?
Indeed.
Astral Points!
Astral energy!
Say no more! Shot!
Well
My
done!
turn! We're not done! Rising Falcon!
Reload!
I'm a Whirl Blade! That's
With
enough!
astral energy!
What's this place here? Some kind of old house?
They got me flanked!
Rising Whopper!
Raging cascade!
Watch this!
Feel the wall! Let's get you all touched.
Take this! Okay, here I go! Rising Falcon!
Leave the enemy's arc to me!
Rising
No
Falcon!
complaints here!
Take this! Whirl Blade!
Raging cascade!
Be still! Stardust!
Do it!
Hurricane Thrust!
Sleep now!
Here I come! We've turned the tables on him.
There are still more left!
Right. No time to hold back. No escape!
Rip and tear!
Lightning orb!
Great! Next! Not this
Banana,
time!
let's go!
Dragon Form!
Raging now! Spread!
Well then, let's keep moving.
We seem to have come across some...
Brace yourselves! This one's tough!
In a bind?
Slash! Dragon Form! Here I come! Eternal Devastation! It's over!
I'm on a roll now!
Blow away! Take this! Burn in hell!
I'm out of
You're
arrows!
mine! Dragon Form!
Leave the ensnaring to me. Yeah, and bubbling to me. Watch
Here I
this.
try harder! Take this! Dragon Form! Stardust! Soaring Light Spear! You're finished!
Now! Farewell! Astral energy! Full throttle! Go! With this, I can become even stronger! Little help!
You're mine!
In a bind?
It's over!
Eat this!
Radiant
Here!
Here!
There you
You're
are!
on!
Celestial Hammer! Hear my call!
Dragon
Air
Form!
Spear! Pierce the evil! Photon Blast! Dance in the wind!
I'll crush you! Lightning reflexes! Tenebrous Claw! Eat this!
You're mine!
Whirlwind
Dragon
Snap!
Form!
Healing Lightning Orb!
Swallow Blade! Now
Did you just hear me?
Yes.
In an instant! Impact Block! Come one, come all!
Dance in the wind!
Here I kiss on!
Air Thrust!
Next,
Hear
my
my
turn!
call!
Strike!
Eat this!
Stardust!
This is barely target practice.
Then why bother fighting them?
Because I certainly won't run away from a battle.
descent! Flashing fang! Easy!
Way to go!
Here I come!
Do it! More!
Look sharp!
Lightning Tiger Blade!
Searing
No,
Pecker!
Dragon Shadow!
Field!
Rising Falcon!
What's this?
Rising Wyvern!
We're thinning them out.
We? More like me.
I'll admit I'm impressed. It's very slick.
Dragon Form!
Do it! Thunder Blade!
I need to be stronger.
It'll be a breeze. Get in, get out.
Where are you going?
Dragon Shout!
You're mine!
Take
Dragon Form! This one's all mine!
Hey, do it!
Blow away! Surely! In an instant! Impact Block! Now! You're mine! Stardust!
Here goes! Here I go!
Rising Falcon! Cut! It's over!
Well, we're on the home stretch now.
Don't take your eyes off the prize.
I'm quite aware without you reminding me.
Do it!
I'll stop your movement!
And I'll stop your life! Check out these biceps. Pretty glorious, right?
Why are guys so obsessed with their muscles?
Because these puppies have yet to let me down.
An opponent like this should be easy. No! It's over! First strike!
Glacial
Rising Falcon!
I never miss!
Double dance! No escape!
Swallow blade!
Here and now!
Lock!
Demon's Descent! Flashing Fang! Easy!
Way to go!
Dragon Form!
Swallow Dance!
Swallow Blade!
Do it!
Lock!
Demon's Descent! Flashing Fang!
My turn! No escape!
Swallow Dance!
Dragon Form!
Eagle Assault!
We're cleaning house!
Let me take the rest of them!
Wow, someone's feeling lively!
Here I come! Dragon Form! It's over!
Hear me! Flame of fury!
I'm not done!
I've been doing really great lately.
There. Still thinking about how to act around Dohalim?
That obvious, huh? Except I don't think I'll be changing much after all. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to stay his servant. However, I am going to treat him like a fellow comrade, the same way I would with you or anyone else. For as long as I can remember, I've spent my life protecting others. But isn't that what friends do too? Support and protect one another in times of need?
Which in the end pretty much means doing as you've always done, right? If that's what you're most comfortable with, I'm certainly not going to give you any grief over it.
Actually, I've been thinking about how I ought to act around you all as well.
Oh?
When I set out on this journey, it was to rid Eldaman and Sia of its enemies, and search for wisdom in the outside world. Wisdom that I could potentially put to use on my return. I'm grateful to you all for letting me tag along. But it got me thinking, what am I actually contributing by being here?
What are you talking about? You know how to hold a weapon, don't you? That's help enough.
Is it though? Sometimes I wish there was more I could be doing to pull my...
Oops, sorry about that. Jeez, I'm famished.
Now that you mention it, what do you guys normally do for food and meals when you're out and about on your travels?
What do you mean, what do we do? We find stuff to eat and eat it. So long as it's meat, I'm not fussy.
Eating what you like can be good for morale in the short term, but you need to think about your diet if you want to stay healthy.
Does that mean eating vegetables too?
Isn't that obvious?
It does, which I guess hasn't been happening up till now.
Yeah, to be honest, we could be eating better than we do.
Understood. In that case, I'll just have to make sure you're all staying healthy and eating right myself. Fortunately, I happen to know a thing or two about cooking as well.
You hear that, Law? Sounds like you'll be eating your greens after all.
What is it?
No, sorry, it's just... I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on all this.
It will do her good to have a project.
No, not Kisara. I meant you. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Me? Certainly you're not looking to me for culinary skill, I hope.
Typical Renan, leaving everything to someone else.
Rinwell, I don't think...
That said, should you need my skills on the battlefield, please rest assured I have no intention of shirking my responsibilities, regardless of who we may face.
I'm sure no one doubts that. Listen, guys, if we're traveling together, we should probably at least try to make an effort to get to know one another, don't you think?
I wouldn't get your expectations too high in that regard. Believe it or not, sometimes I'm not sure I even know myself all that well.
Something wrong? You look like you're deep in thought.
Not exactly. I was merely thinking about you two and your sense of etiquette.
Oh?
Etiquette?
Indeed. To be quite frank, I find your lack of manners to be nigh intolerable.
That's not being frank, that's being and forget it. Do we really need to talk about this now?
Yes, I find such impropriety on your parts to be deeply unsettling. It concerns me greatly.
What do you want us to do? We were slaves. We never got to learn how to be proper like you.
Yeah, what he said. Maybe you missed how we were just focused on surviving.
Perhaps, but Kisara here demonstrates that it's quite possible for a Denon to learn proper manners.
That's because I was given the opportunity to learn. Moreover, my duties as a guardsman required it. Not every realm is like Menancia, as you well know.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to hold us to some other city standards.
Exactly. You've got to remember what it's been like for us living under the Rena elsewhere.
I will concede that you do indeed make a valid point. It would appear, for all my espousing the virtues of equality between our peoples, I was still looking down on the two of you.
You don't need to beat yourself up. I wasn't that offended by what you said, man.
Nevertheless, I shall mind my words from here on out. Having said that, I do believe you two would still benefit from learning the basics of proper society. I would be more than happy to teach you both when we camp out, if you like.
Yeah, no, I'll pass. Acting all prim and proper isn't really my style.
If you say so. How about you, Law? Would you like to learn? Although I suppose my first task is to reform your attitude toward the idea of good etiquette.
You're not gonna let this go, are you?
I need something to eat. What's that big tower over there?
I hate camping out.
I'm impressed how well balanced this thing... Yes.
There are still so many creatures we don't know about.
Have you been writing stuff down about what we fight?
Yep. It's actually pretty fun to observe them from afar.
Dohalim, your spare bracers were getting dirty, so I polished them up along with the rest of your equipment.
Why, thank you, Kisara. I greatly appreciate that.
Maybe it's just my imagination, but you sure seem to fuss over Dohalim a whole lot, Kisara.
It is a little strange. Almost like you're still in his service.
Really? That's certainly not my intention. Besides, he's not the only one I'm like that with. Hey, Law? I saw your clothes were starting to get holes in them, so I stitched them back up for you.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Kisara.
Point taken. Do you just like looking after people?
I wouldn't go so far as to say I like it, but I get anxious if I don't. I'd always like to help if I can. It comes naturally to me. Back in the day, Miguel and I used to look after the younger kids a lot, so that's probably where it comes from. He taught me everything I know, and I mean everything. How to cook with wild plants, how to sew clothes so they'll last. Without him, we never would have been able to survive.
However, you're not a lord anymore, Dohalim. You need to get used to the idea that people aren't just going to wait on you hand and foot.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm ashamed to admit that I felt no qualms about her doing all that for me. As both a Renan and especially as a lord, one becomes too accustomed to those beneath you tending to your every need, both Renans and Danans alike.
Sure, that's how all you Renans are probably raised. But just to be clear, we're not your servants, Dohalim. Got that?
Absolutely. Moments such as this provide me with ample opportunity to confront my unease. It is difficult to tend with my own motivations.
What do you mean?
The truth of the matter is that my espousal of coexistence in Menancia hardly came from an idealistic place. That instinctive unease I feel deep within serves as a reminder for what it is that all of us here fight for.
Don't be so hard on yourself. No one's going to abandon you if you aren't always perfect.
Looking at her now, I think she's more like his mom than his servant.
This looks perfect. Guaranteed to hit the spot.
Kisara, let's talk for a bit.
Sorry for rambling on so much about my past earlier.
Don't sweat it. It was fun hearing you reminisce about the good old days.
Come on, you don't have to pretend with me. I know I can tend to go on sometimes when it comes to my brother.
You said it, not me. Anyway, I don't think it's something for you to be embarrassed about.
Hey, Alphen. When you were a kid, was there ever a time when you had to bury someone younger than you?
Well, it's hard to say. I'm guessing that you have, though.
Yeah. During the previous crown contest, with the Lord before Dohalim. Life back then was truly hell. I think that's why I tried to ignore what Miguel was telling me for so long. Because I was afraid of going back to such a dark time. Of losing hope. I wanted to believe in our paradise so much that I doubted the one person I should have trusted most. I don't blame blame Dohalim for that. I simply didn't want to face facts. And I ended up trying to project my ideals onto everyone else.
It's strange. Whenever you and Dohalim talk about Menancia, it's always like it's some big failure. We're talking about fixing 300 years worth of damage here. Isn't it a bit optimistic to think it was all going to be resolved after only 5?
You might be right. Maybe it was a mistake when Menancia... No. When I decided to stop seeing the darkness in our society. I have to admit the truth. To myself, first of all. See you tomorrow. Before we go, do you guys have everything?
Not this way, I guess. Not this way, I guess.